So again, thanks everybody for your support. Mark, I got you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Remember, thank you for being here. D Hill, always, man. D Hill, the lead evangelist. And so thank y'all for being here as we get started today on this in-person podcast. Again, just want to say shout out to Sed and Debo for the collaboration and the partnership here. And so just kind of overlay for today, obviously we have refreshments. A couple might trickle in, and so we have Tiffany here. So Tiffany and I went to elite private institution together. No, we went to college together, and so both of us were there on scholarships. And so when I was just starting with the idea of laddering your success, I reached out to Tiffany because I was like, yo, I told my scholarship story. I'm trying to tell my scholarship story. So kind of share some of yours. And so she actually did the YouTube channel about 7-8 years ago, before it was ever a podcast. And so with that, if we can all kind of be quiet.
Yeah. And if you just quickly make sure your phones are on vibrate or silent. Yeah.
Sure, I think I just did it. I'll be the file later.
All right. Folks, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest, Tiffany Barthelemy. Tiffany is a passionate healthcare professional and educator whose journey exemplifies the power of dedication, resilience, and continuous learning. With her extensive experience as a physician assistant and mentor, she has empowered countless students and professionals to overcome challenges and reach their fullest potential. Today, Tiffany will share her insights, personal stories, and actionable advice that will motivate and equip you to take meaningful steps toward your goals. So please join me in giving Tiffany a warm welcome. Thank you so much.
So yeah, I'm super excited. Because I get to have a friend and a former guest on today. So me and Tiffany go way back. For those who don't know, you guys there in digital land don't know for sure, but we were in college together. And before I don't even think I had a name, Laddering Your Success, or anything like that. I was just like, man, it'd be cool if we could help more students get scholarships and different types of things like that. And so I had Tiffany come on back when it was this YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a rewind in history where
our first ever.
Oh, what's that?
Our first ever rewind.
This is our first ever rewind. Yeah, because the thing is, part of the problem is so many people think like, oh, this whole conversation about like college is just like, so static. And it's like, well, what about a person's life? Like a lot happens in life. And so we'll recap some of that. Can we watch a couple minutes? You don't want to? Okay, so we're gonna watch a couple, maybe like 2-3 minutes of Tiffany's past. And so you guys can definitely subscribe to see this in the future or see this past video.
Kind of love the old editing.
That's disappointing. You want to introduce yourself, kind of tell us, what school you go to, GPA, kind of things like that.
So my name is Tiffany. I go to Houston Baptist University. I'm a junior, and I'm majoring in biochemistry, molecular biology, in hopes of being a pediatrician.
Oh, wow. Okay, so have you been like super smart all your life?
Yeah, I mean, when I was little, I always tried really hard.
Okay.
It's not that it just comes naturally, no.
Okay, so it's more effort over intelligence.
Yes.
Okay, but you do love science.
Yes.
And kids.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so just kind of we wanted to kind of talk about what does it take to get scholarships. Mm-hmm. Now, could you kind of tell us about your scholarship experience and even your college experience? Like, did you go directly to college after high school? Did you go to 2-year, 4-year? Like, what's your story?
Yeah, so I am a junior, but I'm a transfer. So right after high school, I went to a community college for 2 years.
Okay.
I got an honors associate in science degree, and that was paid for. That was actually a scholarship. So my senior year, I applied for the scholarship, and although I wanted to go straight to university, that was the best opportunity for me.
Okay.
So I decided to go to a 2-year. I graduated, and then I transferred, and I'm at HBU.
Okay.
And with the scholarships, so it was a whole process. my sophomore year of college, I got very involved with Phi Theta Kappa, which is an honor society of a 2-year college.
Okay.
I became an officer, and the most important part is that my advisor was my mentor.
Okay.
So she told me about the scholarships, she guided me through them, she helped me with my writing.
All right, so let's pause it right there. So let's pause it right there, and so now give us an update. You know, you're super smart back then. Did things decline over time? Did they improve? You got a bunch of scholarship money, and did it change your life? How they say, you know, they do that thing where it's like, this student got $1 million at this school. Like, tell us about that. What was your journey, formal and informal education? How has it impacted you then, and how has it impacted you now?
So when I did that video, I think it was my first year at HBU when we met, probably. That had to be early.
Yeah.
Since I was a junior, I was transferring in, so my 3rd year.
Okay.
So that is when I won a lot of scholarship money.
What's a lot of scholarship?
I don't know the total amount of the scholarship money. I mean,
you got the bag.
It was probably close to 300,000.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, one scholarship in itself, like the worth of it was 250,000.
Okay.
Not that I got that money, but that was the worth and the title and everything.
Tell us about that.
So I think the expectation with a lot of these scholarships is they put an amount on them, but they're gap-filling scholarships. So for people who are applying, I thought I was going to, they were going to pay for school and then what was left over was going to come to me. That's not true. So going to HBU, which is now HCU, I received scholarships from them as far as just GPA, SAT scores, I think. And so whatever was left is what my outside scholarship came and filled in. I lived fine for a college student. They paid for my housing, for my food, and then I would get a stipend or leftover money, but it was nowhere near the actual amount. So they pay for the total cost of whatever that total is.
Yeah, tuition.
Yeah, they have that estimate.
Yeah.
It's how much a college student spends, which is a lot. I mean, coming from them, it's not as far as the total amount that it's worth. But yeah, I mean, I finished my college education. I actually graduated 4.5 years, so able to extend it because I changed my major. I changed my life course. And I mean, they paid for everything, no questions asked. So it's definitely nice. I think from HBU, I got their private institution scholarships along with, I was poor, so I got FAFSA. And then I got the private scholarships. Transferring in, I got three private scholarships. And then going forward, I graduated. And am I allowed to name drop? I'm allowed to name drop? Okay. So the big scholarship I won is called the Jack Ken Cook Scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So it's a private scholarship up to $250,000 for transfer. So coming from community college to university. And I was one of the transfer graduate scholars. But they also have a graduate award. So it used to be that it was everybody could apply just for the graduate award. And my year that I was applying, they changed it to where if you were already a transfer, you had more chances to get the graduate. So I got the graduate scholarship. They paid for my entire graduate degree, my master's degree. Wow. Never had to pay a dime. Lived in a nice apartment downtown, paid for. It was great. Okay. I can't remember the amount. I think it was $60,000.
Now, did you get the 60,000?
No, oh. But I used it up. That one I did. They paid for the actual schooling. I think I only got one scholarship through UNT Health Science Center, which is where I went in Fort Worth. I got one of their private scholarships, and then I got the Jack and Cook. So everything was covered. I never have paid for my education ever since high school. Mm-hmm.
So when you say never paid, you mean financial money?
Yes, or money that came from me or my parents, because that was the goal. That was not
so. And I know Ole got a question, but how did you get to that point? In the video you mentioned a mentor. You mentioned Phi Theta Kappa, which I'm a part of Phi Theta Kappa as well. But what was that journey being that, poor girl to these people are paying for my school?
Yeah, so I've always been self-driven. No one ever had to tell me to do anything. So growing up, my dad has absolutely no education, not even kindergarten. So he grew up poor on the streets, started working when he was 4 years old. My mom, I think, has a 9th grade education. And so that was instilled in me that I was going to go to school. So my mom always told me, like, you're going to college. And then I did like school growing up. I didn't know how to do anything else. Like, I wasn't going to work physically. So I knew I had to use my brain. That was going to be my moneymaker. And so I knew I was going to go to college. Seeing how hard my father worked and provided for us, I was not going to put the burden of my education on him. That was something, I believe that education is something you earn and not something we're entitled to. If you want it, you have to go get it. I don't believe in everybody getting free education because some people waste it. Oof. And so I told myself, I remember coming out of high school, like, if you went to community college, like, you were dumb. Like, that was the idea. And I thought that too, because I was like, of course I'm going to a 4-year university. I deserve it. Like, I worked hard in high school. I'm top 3%. Like, I have to. And then I was shocked when my financial package wasn't what I wanted it to be. And my dad told me, no, like, you deserve to go. I'll pay for everything. I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to go to college if it's not paid for. So I applied for that, which I mentioned in the last video. It was like an honors college, but they also paid for everything. And there was a trip to Italy at the end. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply. So I got it, did that for 2 years. And then, wow, my 2 years at Lone Star.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole once again. You know, these days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
I met the Phi Theta Kappa advisor. We became very close. I became very, very involved. Like, I mean, I worked at some point, like, just like on the weekends, but I mean, I never wasn't doing something. I was always volunteering, yes, always reading up on scholarships or doing scholarship programs. It was a very, very busy time. And I was always like that. Like, in high school, I also was like in all the clubs and everything, always so driven. Like, I had the goal and I wasn't going to stop until I got the goal. In college as well, I was in like several clubs, I think. Everything's kind of a blur now, but just heavily involved. Always seeking mentorship. I know HBU had like mentorship and discipleship, like seeking both of them, getting very involved. I'm not the type of person that can be still or like not doing anything, so I've always been that way. So yeah, seeking mentorship, wise counsel, pray. So that's the most important thing. Just being grateful along the way and like giving back. So like now I love when people ask me and have questions about scholarships. I'm like, yes, I'm a good resource. Like, I've been through it. I actually did it. Yeah. When you see it in commercials or like famous people or whatever, people who have reached these goals, you know, you're kind of like, oh, that could be me. But I'm like, no, like I actually did it. Yeah.
So early on, you mentioned that you kind of had a shift, that you were going on one path. In the video, you mentioned pediatrician, but now you're a physician assistant. So what happened? Was there something that clicked for you? Was there something that kind of made you say,
I'll tell you. I was like, who is that? Oh my gosh. So the reason I was going to major in biochemistry, molecular biology is because at HBU, that is a pathway, that is their pre-med pathway. So I was pre-med because I always wanted to be a doctor, like always wanted to be a pediatrician. Well, I think my senior year at HBU, it was junior or senior, but I think it was senior. I learned what a physician assistant was. I had never heard of that job before. And I went to like one of their club meetings and I was like, wait, I can do basically the same job in a shorter amount of time. And at the same time, I met a boy, fell in love. And so things got real as far as, wait, I want to be around for my family one day. I want to be a wife. I want to be a mom. Like, I don't want to have a private practice and live, sleep, breathe medicine and my patients. You know, it was very hurtful to me to think that my kid was sick at home, but I had to take care of somebody else's. And so when I learned what a physician assistant was, that I can basically practice medicine in the same way with some restrictions, but it was going to be so much shorter. Like instead of 8 years, at least more, it was 2. And that was worth it for me, and especially money-wise. So rather than going to med school and residency and getting paid very poorly and then possibly fellowship and being like maybe 32 by the time I finished, at 25, I mean, I was making 6 figures, had my master's degree, bought my first house. Like it was worth it for me. I could start my life faster.
Yeah.
So you was just balling.
We make mistakes.
We don't judge. We listen. We don't judge. Okay, so see, there's a lot there to unpack, because I think when we talk to students and people talk to students, and it's just like, oh, you know, you have people who haven't gotten scholarships telling people about you could get a scholarship, and then you have kind of like this, you know, kind of facade outside who hasn't had that like difficult upbringing, where it's like, you know, and I can speak for myself, I don't want to put anything on you, but parents are immigrants, they don't quite understand the education system, you know what I mean? They're doing the best that they can. They value education and they want you to be educated, but at the same time, they don't understand the challenges that you face in that system, you know? And so kind of, if you could drop some tidbits, like tell us about the challenges that you faced. And then what were some of those things that I faced these challenges, but this is what I learned. And if you could share a tip, like, hey, you know, kind of FYI, you know what I mean? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I think I'm the eldest sibling, bilingual, I mean, come from a Spanish-speaking home. So there was no one there to guide me how to do things as far as like paperwork, FAFSA, like, FAFSA, like just so many things, applications, absolutely. Like I've heard people say like, oh, my mom filled out my college application. I'm like, what? Like that never happened. Anything like that. Like but in the curiosity and knowing that no one was going to do it for me, I just had to do it, like just research. But just also, I think getting the right people involved, like people are out there that are willing to help. You have to be willing to get out of the comfort zone. And so I think a lot of it is we hide sometimes behind like, oh, that's a stupid question, or I don't want to bother them, or I don't know, just like insecurity. But if you don't go and get it, no one's going to bring it to you. So I love now, like on LinkedIn, and I never get on anymore because I'm overwhelmed with my profile, but I'll have a lot of students that like, they're like, oh, PA, whatever, and like, can I shadow you? And I love it. Sometimes I'm able to do it, sometimes I'm not, but I am so open to answering their questions. Like, this is the process, this is how you apply, this is how you get scholarships, like, and I really appreciate them being willing, because I know so many times, like, I was scared. Like, I don't want to be creepy. I don't want to be annoying. Like, they don't know who I am. Why am I even, who do I think I am that I'm willing to reach out to them? And then just seeing, like, people who were where I wanted to be and, like, kind of looking at them like, wow, we made it. Or, so, I would get, like, starstruck, like, when I saw a real PA, and I'm like, I'm just a PA. Like, I'm just a person.
I wanted that.
But I mean, other challenges, I'm Latina. I mean, I'm a woman. Like, I'm Hispanic. I come from parents who don't speak the language and don't have education. I think for me, what I've done in my whole life is that I use challenges to fuel me rather than sitting and wallowing in my sorrow. So for me, when I compare myself to, let's say, someone in my PA class, which was shocking for me when I got to my PA class as far as the demographic, I was like, whoa, like, this is Fort Worth. It was shocking. And so
Tell us more.
No one, I think we were 70-ish students, and maybe there were like 6 that were not white. And that was shocking for me. Like, I had never been in that environment. I mean, I didn't grow up in the best area, so there was Black and Latinos. And so I usually thrived in that area because I think I was one of the few maybe that valued education more, or I don't know, was so self-driven that I placed more importance rather than other things that maybe our communities are taught a lot of times. And so walking into that, I was like, whoa. And that got in my head at the beginning of PA School. I didn't do that well. I let it get to me, that they didn't look like me, that they didn't speak like me, that their parents, I remember some girl, like, her mom was a cardiologist. I was like, oh my God. Like, it was just so overwhelming to hear them, or my mom's a lawyer, like, it was weird to be in that community and hear that. It was very uncomfortable. But then I got to the place when I was like, wait, my dad is a truck driver. My dad doesn't know how to read and write, and I'm here. Like, period. Like, I am here.
Yeah.
Like, I competed against all these people, and I'm here. So I think instead of like kind of wallowing in that sorrow and be like, oh, poor me. Like, I come from this background. It was like, I came from this background and I did it. Like, it just made me so much more proud that I had to work. I felt like that much harder. Yeah. I didn't look like the typical candidate. And I think I put that into everything, all of my applications and everything. I mean, I remember my personal statement for grad school. I wrote it probably like 50 times and I cried every single time. But I start my first one-liner like talking about a poor boy in El Salvador picking coffee beans. That was my dad. Like, it was just so, like, it definitely influenced. And you could see that influence in everything that I did.
Very purposeful.
Hey LYS fam, it's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because you know it's some good topics.
So you were talking about the parents, and I almost want you to talk to, that young lady in the video there, and also talk to the parents. What is something you would say to the next Tiffany, the next young lady who's in that same position trying to get there?
Yeah.
And what would be your advice to the parents that have a Tiffany, that have a child that really wants to go to college, but for whatever reason feels like they can't do it?
One, I would say, so I think now being an adult and paying bills and seeing the reality of our world, everything is run by money. So money, money talks, money is everything. Absolutely do not go to a four-year college if you cannot afford it. If you have to pay for a four-year college, do not go. Go to a community college because it's so much cheaper. People say things like it's not the same education. That is a lie. English, history, your basics, government, it doesn't matter if you took them at a four-year college or you took them at a community college. And actually, I had professors who taught at MD Anderson, graduated from MD Anderson, were heavily involved in research at institutions like that, and they just do the education because they actually like it at a community college or just because they want to continue educating and they're not actually in a clinical role anymore. So do not let anyone discredit a community college. I am so glad that is the route that I took because obviously everything that came out of it, I don't know very many people that have graduated without $1 in debt and they're at a master's degree. I don't. That's great for them if they can pay for it, but I'd rather not. Yeah. And so for the parents, I would say don't stress about that. For the kids, I would say if you care about yourself, you care about your family, then act like it. As far as I didn't party, I didn't do things that I wasn't supposed to do. I didn't waste my time on things I wasn't supposed to do because I was so focused on my goal. I know people whose parents have gone into debt for paying for their first and second years of college, and they absolutely just mess everything up. They have the worst GPAs. Like, everything is a competition. We're constantly in competition for those positions, those jobs in the future. That degree, like the GPA, when you are applying for I feel like after your 4 years, most people do nowadays need to pursue higher education. So unfortunately, and so you are always like, don't even think you're competing in college. You are competing for your graduate degree and position. So actually just focus. Don't waste time or money. And as far as a parent, I know with my mom, so I have a 16-year-old brother, and she's talked about like, well, I have to pay for like private tutoring and this and that just because he doesn't have the grades that I had. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, he has to earn it. No. He has to. Like, I just don't have sympathy for that. Like, don't baby them. they have to go and get it. I don't believe that anybody is truly that much more intelligent than anybody else. It's just an effort thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, some people are gifted or whatever, or they've had that background where like parents are very educated, so they're very educated. Okay, that makes sense. But if your parents are not very educated, then it's your responsibility to become that education.
You know, as you're speaking, you know, this is something we try to talk to kids when we do workshops and we do presentations to parents. Is like, you know, after high school, if you boil it all down, there's really only about 6 different options that you can choose. You know, you could start a business, you could go to a community college or trade school, you could go to the military, you could go to a 4-year school, you could go straight to work, or you could stay at home on your mom's couch, right? And so it's interesting to me because similarly, you know, you've went kind of multiple pathways, you know, you kind of put it together and, you know, you credit that to your success, you know, and so kind of talk to us a little bit about like the value of being, of who you are, your character, your values, your principles that drove you. Because I'm hearing you mention certain things, but where did you pick those things up to kind of drive you toward your success?
Well, one is Jesus.
Amen.
So I'm Christian. I believe that God has this purpose for me, has always had this purpose for me, but I also had to put in the work. It wasn't just going to come.
Yeah.
He's put this desire in my heart to always want to work with children, to work in the healthcare industry, and one day be able to travel abroad and serve as in like mission trips. I still want to do that eventually. So yeah, I mean, all of my principles I try. All of my bread and butter is the Lord and His Word, and that will always be it. So everything that I did, everything that I achieved, always with gratitude back to God. Because it's like, yes, I did this, but God put that desire, God put that motivation in me. And then secondly, my parents. I mean, seeing their struggle. I mean, they were great parents to me. Like they gave me good principles. But just remembering some of their memories from childhood and me being like, okay, this is why it has to be the opposite. And now that I have a son, like seeing why I do certain things, and I'm like, man, like he has a whole nursery. He's never slept in there before. Like he sleeps in our bed, and I'm like, you know, thankfully I did have my room with my sister, but I know, like, you know, my husband also grew up not in the best environment. He didn't have his own room until we got married. Yeah. And so it's like my son has his own room. Like that's something small, but it's also big. I'm like, I gave him his own room and he doesn't even sleep in it. Like that's big. Little things like that. Like my parents couldn't have a house. They had to move from California to Texas, change our entire life so that they could afford a house, not in the best area, but a home. And it's like, I'm 25, recently like married, and then don't even have a child yet. And we have this nice house as far as like in a safer neighborhood, like things that maybe seem normal, but they're not. Like I can see how I worked, I studied, I cried, you know, just cramming before a test, and I'm like, oh, this is why. Like this is why I can buy the organic at the store. Like I don't have to. I don't have to. You know,
she got the good eggs.
HEB, still HEB. But it's little things that I'm like so grateful for. Like not trying to flex, but just one, thank God, and thank God for just like the allowing me to be able to do those things, because I realize not everyone can. But it also, again, life decisions. And not that that's it. I mean, everybody has their own challenge, but definitely I could see some life decisions where it's like, had I gone astray or made other choices, then I would be following like my parents' path, which is still respectable, but it's not what I wanted. So yeah.
So how do you kind of navigate that? Because I think that's a huge thing that we always talk about, is the culture of your parents and the mindset of your parents. And growing up here, building, you know, under your own worldview, how you operate individually. Yeah. And sometimes those things kind of collide, right? It's, you know, I always talk about, you know, just certain things, you know, with my parents, and it's like, I'm trying to do this, and there's like, why are you doing that? You're wasting this, you know, it's like, we have running water now. It's okay. We can
talk about the shower bucket.
You know what I mean? Like some of those,
hey, bro.
Man.
We've been there.
Some of those
washing the clothes in the bucket versus the washing machine.
You know,
no running the
washing machine. This is my washing machine. Oh, relax.
Oh man.
Have you had to deal with any of those things? Have you had to stop yourself and say, oh, why am I doing this? And if you do, how do you kind of navigate those things? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of our kids maybe deal with from, you know, navigate those things?
I think, I don't want to say that I'm humble because then I feel like that's an oxymoron, but like I think I'm still level-headed in that if I can do things the way I've always done them, or it was so ingrained in me that if I can save money, like, oh yeah, I go around the house yelling at everybody to turn off the lights because I pay the electricity bill. I better turn off the lights. So like those types of things, that hasn't changed, and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change who I am as far as trying to prove or demonstrate, like as far as like you know, my income versus my parents. I think more so in me, it's that they ingrained those principles in me so well that I plan to, at least the good principles, carry them over. Also, my parents, like, at least my mom, she's more modern. I mean, she like grew up here, so I can't really think of anything like specifically that she does. It's more so like about like my child, like how like she'll have input, like, oh well, you guys did this, like foods, like, oh, give them like a juice or whatever, and I'm like, no, that has high fructose corn syrup, like you can't have that. And that might just be like my medical background too and everything I see. But it's more so things like that. Like I don't think as far as like finances there's anything that I go through that like my parents did or didn't. And then culturally, like I heavily carry my culture. Like I'm proud to be Latina. We're a mix. I mean, my parents are from 2 different countries. My husband's from another country. My child is from 3 different countries. So like we embrace that in our food and how we speak and how we act.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then we got 2 questions, and then we could, I guess, turn to audience questions and then close out. But how has your culture and your journey impacted your PA practice?
That's a good question. Okay, yeah. So I absolutely love being bilingual. Love it. I don't speak absolutely perfect Spanish. I was born here, and I think now my first language is probably English. I speak it better, but I try. And I think coming from parents who don't have that formal education, I speak normal or lame Spanish. I feel like in English I can function a little bit higher in amongst like more successful or higher socioeconomic classes. But in Spanish, I know what my patients' parents are saying when they say that word that I would only knew if I was like from the rancho. Like I understand what that word is because of who my parents are and like how we speak Spanish. But I absolutely love serving my Hispanic community. My first job was on Bel Air in Sharpstown. So that population, if you know, you know, like it is very heavily Central American, like Guatemalan, Salvadorian, Honduran, immigrant heavy, no English. So it is Chinatown, so we have both. But I would serve, like, my patients usually were the Spanish speaking, which I will mention one thing that kind of hurt, but I understand, and I know this is one of the questions, I'm not sure if we're going to get to it, or maybe I was asked it previously. As far as, like, just respect and, like, being a Latina, some of the parents, and I say parents because I see pediatrics, so I worked at that clinic with a Chinese doctor, and then there was a Vietnamese PA that joined, and I actually helped train him at the beginning. And a lot of the times, like, they would call me the nurse, or they even thought I was a medical assistant sometimes, but he was a doctor. I'm like, don't get it twisted. Like, I trained him, like, but because he's Asian, because he's a male, he's the doctor, but you're not.
But could it also possibly be the mental shortcoming of not seeing themselves be able to rise to that role?
Sure,
too?
Yeah.
You know, so like maybe they're thinking like one of us couldn't possibly do this.
Maybe. And I think just also the way that I carry myself. So I didn't wear business casual. If I can wear scrubs, I'm going to wear scrubs.
Yeah.
So like if, for example, someone next to me is wearing business casual and a white coat, they're the doctor. But because I'm wearing scrubs, it's just that like probably that like I'm lack of understanding that a physician or a physician assistant could also wear scrubs. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, serving that community, I absolutely loved it. Speaking Spanish all day, every day. And then just like the education, I absolutely love patient education. There are so many things that we take for granted when you are educated that you understand that other people don't. Yeah. Very, very simple things. And I love over and over explaining it again and again. In my second job, I worked in an area of Katy, but Katy is now very Hispanic, very, very heavily Hispanic populated. So it was a very similar population, different countries, but still very Latin American. And I also just love serving them a lot of the time. And then it was like sometimes when I would get a patient that was not Hispanic, like, oh, like how do I act? Like I have to be different. Like it was just so casual, like with my Hispanic patients. And then I would have the ones that like have higher education titles from their country, and like I still would know how to act with them. Not that I have to change who I am, but I still felt that confidence treating them the same as I would my other patients. So I absolutely love it. And even now that I work at a hospital, they have those little translator things that they take. Oh, I hate those things.
Is it like a little robot?
Yeah, it's an iPad, and then you have to get the translator on there. And I love like being able, like if a nurse has one or something, and I'm coming in the room, I love being able to be like, no, we don't need the interpreter. Like you got the interpreter.
Shut down.
So I love it. I'm very glad that my parents pushed that on us. I know a lot of first generation that don't speak Spanish. Like, man, you guys are missing out. Like it's such a blessing to be able to help in both languages. And be fluent. Yeah.
So I'll touch on one last thing, and then, like I said, we'll move on from there. You kind of, I heard this undertone of like scholarships, personal finance to like, now it's bills. You know what I mean? So kind of talk about that financial literacy component, where it's like, what's the difference of going from like, your dad's income or your parents' income, to, hey, the scholarships are paying for food on campus, for this, for that, and the third, and then to, downtown apartment. And then now it's like first time home buyer, kind of talk about that financial literacy component.
So just like I told everyone, don't go to a 4-year college if you're not getting it paid for. Do not buy a house until you are ready and research what being ready looks like. But I was just ready. I had my first job. I mean, immediately bought the house. I think I started my job in April, moved into my house in June. So it was quick and I wasn't ready. So that definitely affected us. But once we had the house, it was like, well, I don't want to lose the house. I mean, and it's not, thankfully we haven't been in that position, but because you don't have enough money to pay for like the house, you have to pull from here, and then that's where debt gets involved. Just many, many times I've had like Dave Ramsey in the back of my head, like, no, shouldn't have done that.
Stupid tax.
Yeah. So, and then I remember you actually gave a lecture with the Dave Ramsey, the whole money makeover. And I'm like, man, I'm stopping this. And
I've been doing this for a minute, y'all. I've been doing this for a minute.
But yeah, I see sometimes I do have enough insight to be like, oh, I remember like my parents didn't know how to manage money. Now I make the same mistake. Like I can see it, like, and I'm like, man, I didn't want to, but I mainly learned from our mistakes, and thankfully it's still something that can be fixed. But yeah, I mean, it's no joke. You think you're going to graduate and make all this money, and it's not like that unless you're very strict, you don't have a family, like, you're single and you can afford to. Also taxes. The more you make, the more they take. So it's just, I mean, it's hard. But yeah, that financial literacy, learn that in college. Definitely master that in college, because even if you are highly educated, if you are not highly educated in your money, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Also, don't buy a car if you don't have the cash to buy that car. A car note is the worst. Interest is the worst.
You're on that Ramsey hard.
So, just don't do it. I mean, he's right. He knows what he's talking about. But a car note, I feel like there's no reason. If the car works, it's running, it's not going to leave you out in the middle of the street in this heat, just buy a car cash, because and I know, I understand how hard times are, that sometimes it's not even to stunt. I mean, I have a RAV4, it's not like I have a Mercedes or anything, but it is frustrating giving that like amount every month and then knowing the interest for how many years when I could have just paid a sum at one time. So
100%.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. If there's one thing I love, it's something free. I'm talking free 99, un gratis. No shipping or handling fees, no gotcha fees, nothing like that. With that being said, if you're graduating soon or thinking about college or need a nudge or help to decide, then our free ebook, 10 Things to Think About Before Going to College, has a very balanced and open-minded way of presenting your next steps. It captures broad topics in a personal way by giving students an insightful, interactive, and reflective source of inspiration. It is very beneficial to be able to visualize some of the concepts after high school and apply them directly to you. We all know life, college, and career planning decision-making choices for students can be challenging, especially as they near the completion of high school. This book will provide you with a self-paced guide to your success beyond academics and into real life. Not only is it free, you can complete this book within a week. This will definitely prepare you for long-term success. To get your free copy, simply go to lys.com/students. I mentioned it was free, right? Well, if I didn't, it's free. Like, for real, for real. Okay, back to the podcast.
Man, you've shared an amazing story, a testimony, a journey with us. And I know the students who watch this are going to appreciate it. We're going to take a couple of questions from our small audience. And I appreciate you all for being here. This is why you got to come to the in-person podcast, because then you can ask your questions. We ain't doing no chats and stuff online. Don't put it in the chat. No, I'm joking. And so we're going to take a couple of questions from them, and then we'll close out. So, yes, sir.
All right, that's a great story. I love your story, and I love your success story. Thank you for inspiring. So my question right now is, that time you had the interview, I'm sure I didn't know the government in there. I didn't know the president or who was in government that time. But now it's Trump's time. Is the scholarship available, or what's have been cut off?
I honestly don't know. At least a lot of the scholarships I got were private. So I don't think that affects anything. They're from a private foundation. Okay. So as far as government and like FAFSA and all that, I don't know, because I've been out for so long and I haven't recently helped. I mean, FAFSA was still available. But as far as scholarships, I don't know, or grants, like money that comes from the government, I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I could touch on that question a little bit too, is that, a lot of people are hearing about changes in DEI and saying, hey, is this the end of, the journey for those who want to help minorities? But I really think that, number one, we shouldn't determine our lives based off of who's in power. Because what we do is we disempower ourselves, right? If I say, oh, you're in charge, then I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. What you've done is you've actually given that person more power over you, versus you taking and empowering yourself and saying, hey, I'm still going to make the best decisions I can make. I'm still going to go after the opportunities that are in front of me. So that, too, from an infrastructure perspective, is, as Tiffany was alluding to, there's different types of entities that give scholarships. So one is the school. Through the school's what's called endowment, right? And so through the school's endowment, they have funding, and that funding they could give certain scholarships to. FAFSA is a government grants. So usually you're talking Pell Grants, things like that, right? So that's government funding. So, and that's kind of an interesting mix, because there's certain dollars that come from the federal government to the schools, and then there's some that go directly to the student, but to the school. So they're not giving the money to the student, they're giving it to the school on behalf of that student. So that dollar amount kind of follows the student based off where they go. And then next is the private institutions. So these are usually people who are very well-to-do or wealthy, and as part of their philanthropic effort, they've invested money, and they say, hey, off of this money we invested, so maybe once Tiffany's really, really balling, she's going to take part of her money and invest it, and then that money is now given out directly through to them, or through them, or sometimes they even do it with the school. So they might come and say, hey, let me partner with this school, and I'm going to give a certain amount of money to the school to help manage the scholarships for me, because and this, I think, is a good question for our audience too, who's watching later, is that they think, oh, this rich person is, they just have all that money. Well, how do they get it to you? They don't know you. They don't spend any time around you. So what they do is they trust the school and say, hey, this is money they call it earmarked for, Hispanic, female STEM students, and they'll trust the school to do it. So if you don't apply, you see what I'm saying? Then it's on you. So I hope that answered the question. Oh, we have another question?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is how did you even find a scholarship back then? Because there wasn't no major, well, I don't know how long you've been in school, but it wasn't no Google search engine that strong out there. You know what I'm saying? I was like, how do you find $300,000? And the second question is, Fester probably can talk about this. He can tell you too about this. I called him yesterday, and she's Middle Eastern, and I think she said Irish, and she has no help. So what would you tell her to help her get through? Because she gave up. Remember when I was on the festival, and she's like, man, off the chat. It was so much stuff, and I was just so confused. So, what would you tell her to? I guess both questions.
Yeah, the first one, where did I find a scholarship? So the Jack Kent Cook scholarship, which is the big one, the 250. I didn't know about it until I joined Phi Theta Kappa, which is the honor society for the community college. And so a student at our college had won it the year prior, and then it was like a big deal. Like if he won it, then more students can win it through our college. And so that's where I became aware about it, because it is competitive. So you have to have, I think GPA is 3.5 or above. So on top of like a really impressive resume as far as volunteering and community service and all of that, really good letters of recommendation. So your presence has to be known at school. Like you have to be on it, doing things, building relationships. That's another one that I didn't mention, but building relationships with your advisors, counselors, professors in college. It can be a little bit more difficult, I feel like, but that's where your effort goes in. Like you go to their office hours, even if it's just to ask for help. I know high schools, there's a lot of like career and calling, or in college too, they have an office like called, that's what it was at HBU, career and calling, but they all have like whatever, career
services.
Yeah, so take advantage of those. They're there for a reason, and they know they're a great resource as far as they should have just lists and lists and lists of places where you can find scholarships. I'm not that old, so I did Google a lot of my scholarships. Some of the other scholarships I got were actually through Phi Theta Kappa. There was this extensive application where you apply to a bunch of scholarships at the same time. And each scholarship has like its own essay or its own specific questions. So 2 of the ones that I got were through there automatically. But one of the really big scholarships I got, I literally went on Google and put like, I don't even know, like scholarships for first generation students or something like that. When I applied, I remember I didn't think it was a real scholarship because it was very, very sketchy. Like the website was not pretty. It was, I remember I applied, they asked for everything in paper. Like I had to mail my documents. I was like, this is weird. And then I didn't know that I had won. My advisor, they told her, and I was surprised at the award ceremony. And I can't remember how much that one was, but it was big. And I think it was like out of thousands of applicants, I think they picked 8 in the nation. Like it was competitive. I had no idea. Like I just thought I was applying. That one's called the Dream Award. And so I just looked. So I mean, some of those were brought to me as far as like through Phi Theta Kappa, but I also went on Google and like aggressively looked. And it's not easy and it's not fun. It's not. And it doesn't just come. Like you have to dig and just, I feel like nowadays with so much like social media and resources, just finding people who know more than you. So instead of wasting time making TikTok dances, go on TikTok and look for people who are talking about this kind of stuff. And another question about the girl, like she's having trouble looking for scholarships.
So I think I can speak to that a little bit. And I'm going to ask you a question that maybe can help that type of student. So a lot of students, they're asking questions, and if they don't get what they feel is the direct solution the first time, they get frustrated. So can you talk about maybe that frustration you felt of like, you know, I'm asking this person, and I'm not getting the answer I want right away. What would you say to that? And then also for those who are trying to help that type of student, like what would you say, like, you know, you have mentors and things like that, relationships. What would you say that were maybe some things that they did to help you?
I think one of my life mantras is if it wasn't, hold on, my mantra, I don't even know it. If it was easy, then it wasn't worth it. Okay, so nothing worth it comes easy. That is true of everything, relationships, everything. Everybody, you know, you have your struggles, and then it's worth it in the end. So very rarely do you actually try something for the first time and then you give up. You're not gonna get anywhere if that's the mindset. I understand it's frustrating. I understand that there's a lot of competition. I understand that it seems like people are more educated or have more experience and therefore have more availability to those things. But I mean, if you're hungry enough, like you'll eventually get there. I just feel like that's the reality. Like, don't give up, which sounds cliche, but if you do, then you'll never get there. And as far as like, I also understand the frustration of like being a mentor and like wanting to help and not knowing where to look. find a mentor. So like no one is at capacity as far as like no one knows everything. So find someone who does, or find someone. A lot of times too, when I was, I think, a PA student or a new PA, I added random people on LinkedIn. And that was really scary for me because I'm not the type of person. I talk a lot here because now I'm comfortable, but I don't like talking in big groups. Like I don't like talking to people I don't know. So that was very uncomfortable. But I see students who do it with me where they have like their little message that they've generated and they probably just sent it to 100 PAs. And you get one, you get lucky. And now you got your shadowing experience. So if you like Google search, or if you go on LinkedIn or whatever and search for the names of specific scholarships, for example, I have on mine that I won that scholarship, and then you message me, hey, what did you do to get that scholarship? I will help you. I'll let you know. So just things like that. I think we have way too many resources nowadays to like give up.
Don't know how to use them.
Yeah.
It sounds like LYS. Okay. So we got to wrap up. So with that being said, we cannot thank you enough for being here, for sharing your experience and journey. And for me, I think personally, it's kind of full circle because I think I often run around and people think I know what I'm doing. And so it's like, you know, you pray and whatever the Lord says do, you're just like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go do it. And sometimes it looks great. And then sometimes it's like, maybe I am crazy, you know? And so I can't appreciate you enough for the full circle moment, and then seeing your son and the fact that, like you said, he gets his own crib, his own room. And so quite often for me, I think the joy is seeing the successes of others. So Ole, you got anything you want to share before we close out?
Just like, I guess like Festus said, I mean, it's a really full circle moment to see just where you were and how it's going to inspire so many people who are in the same position as you. I think there are a lot of young people who have never been told that they're really talented, or never really been told, or even they know they've got something, but I think what you mentioned about effort and, you know, even the students who, you know, don't get the answers they want and they kind of want to, they have that give up mentality, or that, you know, it's just not going to be here.
Yeah.
You know, we always used to say this. We used to say it in relation to, you know, trying to get a girl's number, but is it the Wayne Gretzky quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, or something like that. So it's like, you got to just keep shooting. You just got to keep, you know, putting forth the good effort. So I love that message. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, guys.
Definitely. So listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. You better like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.